We devised a number of questions that we think are some of the key questions that people face when they get into service learning, and I'll just start with the first one, which is, how do you settle on the service learning that you're going to do in your class? And I'll take an answer from anyone who wants to offer one.
By luck. So, yeah, it comes out of it. I'm glad to see Craig's here in my community. Initial discussions, but a lot of it is looking for opportunities, and in part your final decisions depend on what opportunities are out there. So.
Now, in your case, Mike, I happen to know you had a personal connection with the organization with which you ended up assigning your students to work.
Yeah, and this was, again, luck, I think. I happened to be involved with Mount Lebanon Nature Conservancy, a group that advocates for passive use parks and green space in the South Hills. And I was on the board, and I knew that, in fact, I could talk to the board members. I had personal relationships there and say, is this something that would work out? Are you willing to work with our limitations and possibilities here? And they were, yeah. That made a very natural progression for this. In, I think, my first year in these learning communities, we tried to build something up from scratch. It was much more difficult. We were able to do something. Yeah, finding partners that you can work with in personal relationships, I think, are important. So.
Now, I can think Ava and Lou both had personal connections that led to your service learning. Ava?
Yeah. For me, it was also personal connections I had in my neighborhood. So we did some ecology work, eco-psychology work in the community. But, I think there's a difference between starting a project, but what I found is that my projects morphed over the years. I've been doing it for 4 years, and they're completely different. And it's almost any time you do that with community partners, there are other needs that you begin to see. So, depending on who the students are and what they're doing, you meet new community partners through the partners you're already working with. So I think it's a completely different thing when you've done it for a while to pick and choose what you do.
What Evan was referring to is I have connections within the nonprofit community in Pittsburgh, and specifically because I teach political science and I'm a little bit active on the political side. A friend of mine by the name of Pat Clark, who has his own consulting firm that taps into all of these groups within the community. So between that, and I just wanted to echo what Mike said, it's far easier to tap into existing organizations than it is to try to build something yourself from scratch. And also, as Eva said, it changes from year to year. I was just mentioning, I copied, it was an email to Liam and I copied Evan on it, that I see us going in a different direction this year coming up, just based on the dynamics of the political cycles and everything else. So. Again, we're going to be reaching out this spring to the nonprofit side and expanding on some successes that I think we had this past fall with the Josh Gibson Foundation. And so it's a lot easier to tap into existing organizations and fit underneath that. And also, I think it makes for a better learning experience for the kids because they are tapping into the subject matter expertise of the people that run these organizations out in the community already.
I'm interested that you all speak of this organic nature of the developmental nature of your service learning from year to year. But really, the three of you who've spoken so far have maintained a connection with the same organization over a period of years now. But the form of the association has changed. Am I correct?
I want to echo that as an important element, and this is maybe a later question about challenges in service learning projects, but recently one of the groups that we work with in the Hazelwood community, just here, I've been very involved with some of my classes in Hazelwood, and first a community partner basically that we were looking at to do a project with basically said, look, if you're going to come in here for a semester, we don't want you. We need long-term commitment. That it was working with youth, and they need kind of long-term kind of connections over several semesters or over the course of years, looking for long-term partnerships. And so a lot of the community partners, they actually request this kind of long-term commitment. So And I think it's important to have and to maintain. So if we're committed to those, if we're giving back to the communities in terms of this reciprocal relationship, then we have to be committed long-term and not just the semester schedule.
You said a couple of important words there. One is reciprocity, the other sustainability. Or maybe if you didn't say the word, you talked about that concept. Two of the bedrock concepts for effective service learning, and the needs of the community or of the group really are primary when it comes to service. And then it's our task, or would you agree that it's our task to figure out how to use those service needs in an effective way to teach our students principles that we want them to learn? Kathy, please.
Yeah, that's definitely what happened in our case. Last year I was new to the position of director, and I asked my colleague Laura Callanan where she thought we might look for a community partner, and she suggested the GPLC, which is committed to teaching low-income communities reading, writing, and math skills. They're also committed to working with immigrant populations, so it turned out to be a really nice fit because Litteri's themes include focusing on the intersections between literature and diverse stories, places, and journeys. So it was a wonderful fit, and furthermore, our students could fulfill the needs of the community because the community needed tutors and they needed conversation partners, and our students were able to fulfill those tasks.
And you've just come off your first experience with that organization this last semester.
Yes.
Do you see Litteri continuing with that organization in the future?
Absolutely. We'd like to duplicate what happened last year, although we don't know that that will be possible, and I really appreciated hearing how you were willing to improvise and to remain open to the challenges that arose in the moment. So that was helpful for me to hear, but we'd like to continue with Litteri, working with the GPLC next term.
Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Norman, you're the only one we haven't heard from yet. How did you pick your partner?
Well, it was a evolving relationship that I'd started teaching inside-out courses in the Allegheny County Jail, and I was brought into this learning community, and we were talking about what our service learning project could be, and it just seemed like a natural fit.
Great. Going to do it again?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, probably so. You've done it for 2 years now.
Yeah, 2 years
This
with
is your second year
UDCM,
in the jail.
And I'd been doing it for a couple years on my own before that.
Yeah.
So.
Evan, if I could go back to something you were asking about, which is, the issue of sort of the morphing of this relationship versus staying with the same organization. I'm actually in my second year with the Conservancy, and what I'm finding is that I will plan to work with them in the future, but the needs of this organization and the capabilities of the students sort of change as we go on as well. And that's probably your experience too, right?
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because I think there are two different kinds of service learning projects. Some where you do things like tutoring that are specific to a site and you send the students there every year to do something, or you work on service learning projects. And I don't know, I mean, there's maybe literature about these different kinds of things.
I don't know that there is, actually. I don't recall.
Yeah.
There is. Lena says yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll read more about it.
Does everyone know Lena Dostilio? Lena, stand up just a minute. Lena directs the Office of Service Learning here on campus.
She's our fairy godmother.
And as previously said, that's the best way actually to get connections for your service learning projects right there. So I think Leslie said the same thing for yours.
Very resourceful.
Yeah, the resources are through Lena. So.
Yeah, excellent.